I'm a futurist. What does that mean? It means that I've spent the majority of my life thinking about how technology is fundamentally changing human society and culture. This presentation is going to talk about a number of different things that are happening today. And what I see happening today that's going to have an impact on the next few years. 2030 is only 12 years away. And if you think about where you were 12 years ago, we're already in a completely different world, right? So let's get going. So this whole presentation, when I started thinking about what you do for a living, and I speak to a lot of engineering and geoscientist crowds, across the world, and I think, what do you do? Well, you're part of the invention process. Oftentimes, you're the people that invent. I like to go back and look at people like Al-Jazari in the 12th century that invented, early prototypes of automata. People like Leonardo da Vinci, people like Isambard Kingdom Brunel, a great engineer in the UK, and everything that he did. And there's so many more people than that I can summarize at this point on the stage. But I think that invention is everything that started everything that I'm going to talk in this presentation about. But really, at the beginning of the 19th century, everything changed. Electrification hit. Personal computing came in the 1960s. In 1968, a guy called Douglas Engelbart sat in Stanford, and he showed the world a personal computer. It had a mouse. It had an early version of what would become video conferencing, the hyperlinking. It had a short form keyboard on the side as well. And that was called the mother of all demos. And in just 50 years, we've all got infinite power in our pockets with cell phones. Is there anyone in the room that doesn't have a smartphone? Yeah? Typically, it's the people that work in security. But we're actually getting to the point in time where by 2020, we're going to have everyone in the world with a smartphone. And then we got the internet and mobile in the 1990s. And in the early days of the internet, no one quite believed where we would be. And now everyone is on the internet in this room, I imagine. And in the next 5 to 10 years, another 4 billion people across the world are going to join us in that global ecosystem. So what's going to change? Access to services, access to each other. And this is actually going to drive business forward and exponential growth of what we do. And then in the 2010s, and really in the last 3 to 4 years, huge leaps and bounds have been made in terms of artificial intelligence. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in detail in this presentation. So everything starts, I feel, in the modern world with industrial revolutions. There's 3 dimensions to this: communications, energy, and transportation. These are the 3 things that we work to develop new solutions, invent new ways of working. And today we're kind of in the 4th industrial revolution. We're in the digitized communications internet, we're in the digitized renewable energy internet, and we're in the digitized automated transportation and logistics internet. Everything is connected, and everything can work together seamlessly, or so we hope, right? That's certainly the wish of where we're trying to get to in 2030 and beyond. And these are the 8 technologies that I talk about the most. So everything from big data to AI, the Internet of Things, blockchain, nanotechnology, and quantum computing. I'm going to cover in some detail here. And I call these the exponential 8. I think if you were to take 2 or 3 of these and mash them together, you could come up with many machinations of new ways of doing things, or new infrastructures that we can build, or new ways that we can build foundational elements of business. I think that this is an incredibly exciting time. I think that more's going to change in the next 20 years than changed in the last 200. Obviously, we've got the foundation of what we've created up to this point to leap from, but really, the amount of money that's being poured into exponential technologies, invention, research and development, and innovation is incredible today. So, when I try and see what's going to happen in the future, and I am not always correct about what's going to happen in 12, 20 years. In fact, we never get there. I'm always looking out and beyond. I try and look at the signals of change. So when you walk down the street, when you're in an airport, when you're in a train station, when you're driving, when you're speaking to kids in a classroom, when you're spending family time, there's all these little indicators that change is coming, and I call these signals of change. And these signals of change actually indicate to me this new world that we're headed towards. And it does take a while for the future to come. I actually say that the future comes slowly, and then suddenly it comes quickly. There's a professor down in Stanford called Paul Sappho that says it takes about 30 years for technology to seep into culture. If you think about that with mobile phones or even virtual reality, you can actually see that being the case. Electric vehicles have been around for a long, long time, but now they're just starting to hit some pace in the real world. So it's not necessarily about the invention, it's about that cultural appropriation of that technology and being able to apply that in new ways. And we don't often think about the best way to apply it until we've got it in front of us. Because I think that any technology that's worth its weight to have some impact on the future, you can take it and you can hack what it does. It's like taking an iPhone and realizing that you can use it as a hammer and you can hammer a nail in, right? You can, but why wouldn't you treat it that way? Okay. So the first one that I talk about, and this is the foundational element, and this has probably got the most growth going on right now, is around data. It's the most valuable commodity in the world. It never runs out. By 2025, it's going to be 163 zettabytes. It's about 4.4 zettabytes today. What does 163 zettabytes look like? Well, it looks like a billion high-definition movies. And when you get to the point of having so much data, what can you do with it? Well, you can't do something with every single piece of that data. We're probably going to find value in about 0.5 to 1% of the data we have available. And all the other systems in the world, once they're connected to the internet, are going to be passing data around up to the cloud, around us in mesh networks and beyond.